Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I was supposed to go first. I was told that I have to go last because the microphone has to be readjusted because of the voice. Before I take my seat, just allow me to introduce my panelists. I just thought I would test the seat and see if everything is in order. Allow me to introduce my guests. Very good afternoon yet again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Arnold Segawa. Some of you might have seen me. I'm sure many of you saw me on the television. Just yesterday, I happened to be a news anchor for NTV Uganda. If you haven't watched 9 o'clock, I don't know where you've been living. It's very fascinating for us to go on about fintech and financial inclusion and ignore the elephant in the room, which is that we have a population that is predominantly female. 51% of Ugandans happen to be women. So for us to think of ourselves as furthering financial inclusion or talking about fintech without having the elephant in the room discussed, which is the women, would be for me a waste of time. Without any further ado, allow me to introduce the women who are breaking the ceiling and breaking barriers and redefining each and everything that we know about finance today. Miss Doreen Lukandwa, who is the head of marketing at Beyonic. From MTN Uganda, we have Miss Primera Muthoni, who's a product specialist. Then Miss Kamau Wangeci, who is with the True African. She's also the head of business operations. And Smart24 TV CEO, Miss Jackie Arinda. And finally, we do have Your Uganda's Miss Penny Kamusiime, who is a manager of customer experience. Ladies, thank you again for making time to join this exquisite panel. My word, we should have had 3 hours. Yes, after testing the seats, it's always good, you know, to be a good host. You have to make sure that everyone is very comfortable. Like I said before, for me the biggest issue is us to have such seminars and conferences and symposiums, and we do not address the elephant in the room, which is the country, the region, the continent, the world is predominantly female. But if we were to look at the disparity in terms of gender when it comes to financial inclusion, when it comes to fintechs, when it comes to entrepreneurs in the fintech space, the gap is just massive. We're talking about 10 percentage points according to the World Bank. Let me start with maybe someone who's more into the entrepreneurial space, Miss Penny Kamusiime. Just give me a sense of how hard you've had it when it comes to women being maybe embroidered into this particular space. Miss Penny?
I'm here?
Yes.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. When it comes to women being embroidered in this space, I'll say that initially when I started the fintech industry, I realized that most of the guys in the industry were men. So I asked myself, why are there so many women? There are women who feel like, you know what, that space is for men, so we can't really go there. So that's, how can I call it, that lack of confidence that they have. And then also, women are not supported by men. For example, I'll give now, like in the villages, the men feel like, why would you go into this business? I am the head of the family, I'll provide this and that. So women find it very hard to actually get capital to actually start entrepreneurial businesses.
Primera, I want to hear from you. MTN has tried to maybe further this divide, well, not further it, but bridge the particular divide. Primera, just talk more onto this particular gap. And I mean, she's giving us a different experience. Just give me a sense of how it is.
I would like to talk about it from the aspect of me as an employee, in terms of being employed in an organization where we are handling fintech services. over the years I've worked for in the fintech space or in the product space, I develop products. I haven't felt a big gap because of working in a company that is very rich on diversity and rich on inclusion within the space. I have not felt that because I'm a lady, that the nature of work provided for me to do is different from my male counterparts. I haven't had that experience in terms of where I work.
Super. Definitely MTN is the place to be for a lady. Jackie, what say you?
I can say that as women, looking at financial inclusion, I don't see the gap, but yes, when it comes to technology, we are a bit excluded. And if you go back to UNEB results and looking at the performance of girls when it comes to science subjects, is still not very good. I mean, it's something we are not proud of. And I think it goes back to the environment, the values and beliefs that we have as women, that we are supposed to sweep the compound because we can't slash the garden. So I think we have, as women who are mothers, and as women, we have to talk to our sisters and convince them. And actually, even when you go back to families, you will hear a father talking to a son to take up an engineering job, but you will hear them telling them to go and learn how to be a receptionist. So for mothers, they are more focused on subjects that, in the country every day, Honorable Janet and the First Lady has said we are good in English, and it is a fact that ladies were good in English. But when it comes to the technicalities in technology, we are excluded. So I think there is a gap.
It's quite sad that a gender is actually relegated to being able to read. Doreen and Wangeci, you can just speak to this. Because part of the biggest problem that has been highlighted is the mere fact that STEM, sciences, technology, engineering, and the mathematics of this world, when it comes to performance, again, what you're addressing, Jackie, still, there's a massive gap there. And for us to think that overnight we're going to have women entrepreneurs in this particular space, well, literally dreaming. When Jackie, you can just touch that, the STEM issue, and Doreen, you'll just wrap it up.
Okay. I would say what Jackie has said in Primera is that we need to educate our girls, and it needs to start from a young age, the same way she has said that, a dad will speak to his son and say that you need to study engineering and you need to study technology. And, they'll tell us you should be a receptionist or you should work in the hospitality industry. I think it starts at home, and it starts also when we tell our daughters that they can be anything that they really want to be.
Doreen?
Yeah, I think I agree with everybody on the panel. I think that even just as women sitting on this stage, we have a responsibility to show other women and girls that some of these things are possible. But I think going back to what we mean by fintech, we are literally using technology to bridge the gap between traditional access to traditional services with the underserved. So when we talk about fintech, it goes way beyond just technology. It goes way beyond just being a CEO of a company. It has a lot to do with access to essential services. You have fintechs that are providing education at a young age. You have fintechs that are providing healthcare. You have fintechs that are providing daycare services. So it's not necessarily about you having to be locked in a technology space. It's about innovating solutions that address a need. And I think we also have to be willing to admit that we are dealing with legacy issues that have been carried from way back, from our forefathers, our grandparents, etc. And it's our responsibility to change that, whether it is now, whether it is with our children, but it is our responsibility to show people that there is more to women. Like Primera said, we can do what the men can do, but we have to be able and willing to show that behaviors can be changed and people have a right and ability to access the services that they need to access.
I remember so many moons ago when I was sitting for A-level, there was an issue around the women, the ladies at the time, I want to call them that, having an extra percent. And it caused a stir because on one end, some argued it impedes them and it maybe, what's the right word? You know, you get used to something for so long and it kind of undoes whatever good it's supposed to do. Is it time for us to think vis-a-vis the STEMs for women? Is it time for us to have a sort of a policy shift and move? Because we can't wake up and say, oh, Boo-Boo is here, and now we're going to get, you know, Ugandan-made fintech solutions. No. So I want to address this from at least the policy side. I want to hear from all of you. Policy-wise, how do we address this particular issue? What can be done? What can be the long-hanging fruit that can be addressed, maybe in the near term, 2 years? I want to start with you. And please kindly just adjust the mic. We're having some issues picking this up. No, lower. Thank you.
Policy-wise, I believe already the government has provided, I think it's compulsory for all science subjects. But I realize that in schools, all they do is just teach, like you have the knowledge, but they have not gone further ahead to actually tell these ladies and gents that, you know what, these ladies can also help you do this, but then they have also not gone ahead to also tell them that, you know what, you can do anything. Because personally, for myself, I actually learned that, you know what, I can do anything I want. Initially, I knew, okay, this is what I'm good at, so I'm going to concentrate at, but I learned it over time. So this is really lacking in schools. There's that confidence building, and with the parents these days, I drop you at school, I pay your fees, I pay all the bills, that is it, I'm done. I don't sit you down and actually tell you, you know what, this is good and you should actually. So I think the policy should also concentrate more on families, encouraging families to actually put this, and then also to the schools, making sure that these educational and awareness sensitization in school is actually done and it's followed through.
Jackie, let me hear from you. And let's be cognizant of the fact that when we talk fintech, I don't know how many people in the room know some programming languages: SQL, PHP, Java, C#. I see you're nodding, Doreen. Besides learning about the Canadian prairies that we learned about and the raw industrial region that is actually gone and dusted, there's no more coal in Germany. God knows they moved away from that. Should we be teaching people about maybe Bill Gates, maybe Elon Musk, maybe Tesla, and things like that, and readjust our curriculum? Jackie?
Just to clarify, as for looking at data, because we believe data and facts really help us to plan for the future. Now, looking at mobile connections in the country as a data reporter, it shows Uganda is one of the countries that is performing poorly when it comes to mobile connections. It is at 26.8, so this is general. Now, 26.8, that means that it is no longer about women here. We have innovation hubs, and when you look around the innovation hubs, now the question would be, what have we portrayed outside Uganda? We have seen Chira, EV, we have seen actually apps being developed, we have seen all that coming up. But the question remains, why is it that we are not seeing more? So at this point, I would love to say that it is no longer about women, but also the government needs to empower the innovation hub and give them the rights. I don't know if it is about copyrights, but I don't really know why we see innovation hubs year after year, government after government, but we don't see the results. So I believe if only we could have maybe events like these where we portray, we show what Uganda has brought up, because technology is here to provide solutions. So even if you pass it as a policy, I can go back to school. And I was forced to take science, and my worst was chemistry. And they even provided a tutor to teach me chemistry, and I would see O2 or something, and I would not connect. But I was forced to do it. Why? Because I knew after senior 4, I would do my arts. So even forcing them, once they get their certificate, they will go for what they want. So I don't think here we should force a child to do what they don't want.
You just reminded me of those chemistry equations. H2, well, hydrogen plus oxygen is equal to H2O. Wangeci, I see you nodding to some extent, but not so much. Just try and address this STEMS issue.
I would say that while in education, like you said, that should we start to talk more about the Bill Gates and should we start talking about Elon Musk, etc. I think that the more that we educate people, yes, we hope the more that they are going to want to learn. But I think it has to start with you as a person, for you to decide on what it is that you want. You can decide that you want to get into tech. You can decide that you want to be a chef. And what's the most important thing in all of those is that you must do the research. You must put the work behind it if that is what you want to do. I don't think forcing anybody to be able to do something because...
No, not necessarily forcing. What I'm saying is, besides attacking British Columbia and learning about how they are fishing,
yes.
Why aren't we hearing about Madame Curie, someone who was at the forefront, a woman who was at the forefront, God knows she lost her life, discovering plutonium and its effects? Isn't that the direction that we need to be heading towards, as opposed to an outdated curricula?
I agree. The curriculum has to change, and again, it has to start as well with government for them to understand and change that the curriculum that you used 10 years ago or 20 years ago is not what needs to be used now. So it is changing that, but of course it starts with us, is that we also have to ask for the change. We have to go in there and say, you know what, I think that these are some of the things that our girls or even the boys need to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Doreen, let me hear from you. I'm sure you did so exceptionally well at the biology.
Thank you. So I think I agree with what everybody has said literally, but I think that it goes well beyond that. I think that we actually need to be setting examples that people can look up to, that girls can look up to. If you're talking about Bill Gates or whoever that may be, it would be nice to hear of homegrown businesses run by women that are thriving. A good example, again, like Beyonic that I work for, was recently merged with a company called MFS Africa. The founder is Ugandan, started here and has scaled the business to a level where somebody else has appetite in it. But the CEO of this company is a woman. And even for me working in that company, I aspire to be greater than what I am right now. So I think it's in addition to what everybody has said, we need to be working with government, with organizations like FITSPA, with all these different partners, whether it's telcos or banks or whatever. I mean, Stanbic recently hired or, promoted our women.
The CEO, yes.
Thank you very much. So all those are just powerful examples that are being set for women to follow. Everybody says, oh, maybe I could be that person.
I can. I think I can is the right word.
Thank you very much.
Not I could.
If there are more examples like that for us to look up to, then the sky is the limit, because then you've whet my appetite to take on the sciences. You've whet my appetite to innovate. You've whet my appetite to try out different technological aspects.
Doreen, you've touched on a particular issue that I wanted Primera to actually address. There's a Deloitte report that it was so fascinating. The issues that you've all highlighted are the issues that this particular lady highlighted on the issues that are holding back women in fintech. And this is what she had to say. The biggest challenges are three. One is the fact that too few women work in fintech companies. That's one. The other is there are few founders who are women, and they're underrepresented when it comes to the fintech user base. So already you have a three-pronged challenge that you're facing getting into it. You add the lack of STEMs, or should I say people who you look up to initially. Primera, just touch more on this vis-a-vis what everyone else has said.
Oh, thank you very much. I have enjoyed what they have talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I am actually a woman in STEM. I have had a 4-year degree in engineering, and I have actually studied marketing. And one of those important things has been my environment in terms of giving me the support to be able to explore myself, not just because I finished an engineering degree and moved into the STEM world. I'm also given the opportunity to be able to go out and study marketing in its entirety. One of the major things has been confidence, really, when it comes to women. We finish the 4-year degree, or you are a woman in STEM, and then all of a sudden you don't have the confidence to actually step out and look for something else to do. Look for other women, co-founders, and decide, you know what, this is an amazing idea. I would like to go out and do it. Then the other thing I've seen is the skill set. It is really lacking in the ecosystem. And this is not just about women in STEM at the leadership level. For us to be able to get to the leadership level means we started at some point. The skill set I required 10 years ago when I reached the employment space is not what I need today. Like, the environment has really changed. So a few weeks back, I was invited by a certain hub locally that is actually doing a lot of work in edutech, and it was so interesting to see women who are moving away from an HR position to become a software developer.
Mm-hmm.
I was super impressed by just that confidence to be able to say, you know what, I'm done with the HR space and I want to be able to move to a tech space. So I'm like, it is opening up new dimensions, and the fact that even the development of such a curriculum, the edutech curriculum, to be able to teach these women to do software development is something that is homegrown.
But my issue isn't particularly the women who are here. The women who are here, you guys are good. You guys are sorted. My issue is, how often, in just one line, how often do my 5 panelists here go to Gayaza, go to Masindi High School, girls, and just talk to these ladies, and just talk to these young girls before their mind is made up that they are good for writing and they are good for English, like someone said, which is just absurd. How often should you ladies be out there, being the face, and telling everybody that, guess what, this can be done, you can do it? How often do you guys do that?
Literally every other week, but the number of women are still few, so we are not able to cover all the schools that we should at the same time. But it's a work in progress.
Okay, ladies, I've just been warned that I've run out of time. Clearly, this should have been maybe 2 hours. Very briefly, maybe we could touch on the issue of mobile phones. Now, the phone kind of just, I hate using the word disrupted, but it literally just disrupted financial inclusion and fintechs and whatever. Give me a sense of, in a very, very few lines, if financial inclusion and ultimately the prosperity of the fintech space is inseparable from mobile phone and internet penetration in Uganda or even the region. Let me start with you.
Looking at the phone and internet penetration, I would say that whereas the big MNOs have tried to reach the rural areas, there are still areas that are lacking. I had a discussion recently with someone, and I asked her how many people own a phone in the village, and she told me mostly it's the men, but not the women. So I asked, why don't they have phones? She told me they don't know how to read, because most of them didn't study fast. So if you give her a phone, she's just going to receive. She won't use it for anything. Maybe trying to say, let me try to get an app. Let me see what can, if I press maybe start something. What will it do? No, they don't know all that. So most of them will actually not use the phone for for any financial services or anything like that?
Guys, I'm being warned of the time. Jackie?
Yes, when it comes to mobile phones, I go back to the 26.6 mobile connections. That's the percentage in Uganda as of January to 2020. And when you look at financial inclusion connected with women, is that most women in rural areas, they are not connected to phones. Why? Because of one, husbands that say, you know what, mobile phones are going to connect you to some other person that I don't need in this marriage. So they are controlled by that. And secondly, most of the women, as you know, the MasterCard index for women entrepreneurship, who are the top in entrepreneur skills. But when it comes to such services, they think they are expensive. They would rather stay in their circles, the informal service providers, than connect to mobile phones. And lastly, as I can say, is that for us women, like I say, when it comes to technology and understanding things, it's really still a challenge for us. So we are still performing poorly, but I guess like telecom companies, they should maybe start advertising promotions for women that are directly for women, like the way I see other telecom companies are spearheading with men. I actually, on the billboards, I'm very keen. I usually look at billboards and even the package they are promoting.
Right.
Yes, and I must say that telecom companies, they're helping to include women.
Ms. Wangeci?
With 54%, only 54% of women in Uganda have phones. So it starts with, it's a cultural issue. I think that when you begin to explain, and you know, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate that you have to start with the head of the home, who will, once you explain to them the reason why she needs a phone, you know, she'll be able to get loans, she'll be able to get money, she'll be able to open up a bank account, and the reasons why, if he allows her to be able to do that, then she will elevate the family. So I think that, yes, it is a cultural issue, and once we start to educate them, they'll educate them, and we have like mobile networks, as has been said by the ladies, is that mobile networks need to go out there more, need to educate these women more, as well as banks going out there as well, right, to educate them and tell them, you know, it's easy for you to open up a bank account if you have a phone. It doesn't even need to be a smartphone. So I think that's the way that we would go.
Doreen?
I think the nuances around bridging the gap for women in the space are quite vast, quite broad. There's a lot that needs to be tackled. Steps are being made to achieve that, but we still have a long way to go, as everybody has said. But I think that there are very many ways to skin a cat. It does not mean that you must have a phone to be financially included. You have vouchers, you have cards, there are so many ways that we can achieve this. And that is the role that FinTech plays. That is the role that technology plays. Right. And that is what we need to be educating people about, the possibilities of innovation.
Thank you for that, Primera. You have the last word. Everyone is talking about telcos and telcos this and telcos the other. Please.
Thank you very much. I totally agree with what they all have said. Women are still earning much, much less in terms of their everyday life, and they do not have access sometimes to be able to buy devices. Sometimes they are still a bit expensive to buy a smartphone for the average income of a lady or a woman who is especially not living in an urban environment, which is one of the biggest things. So we also need to look at that in terms on the government side, and also phone providers in terms of anyone who is importing phones into the country, to bring in affordable devices that can be used by everyone equally.
Right, ladies, many thanks for that. And for my esteemed panelists, allow me to just introduce them yet again. With Beyonic, we do have Ms. Doreen Lukandwa, who's the head of marketing. MTN Uganda's Primera Muthoni, who is a product specialist and a true African, Wangeci Kamau, who is the head of business operations. Smart24 TV CEO Jackie Arinda, and of course, last but not least, Ms. Penny Kamusiime, who is Manager Customer Experience at Your Uganda. At this particular point, thank you very much, I'm Arnold Segawa. Let me hand over to the very esteemed host, Mr. Wesley. There's a lot of misses, yes. I almost called him Miss.